All right, Kyle Nedner here with our semi-state preview, and Alex Daniel joins me from South Bend Riley. And Alex, I'm going to start with the you never try to bury the lead when you're writing a good story or you have a good story in front of you. And you guys had a great win last week against Warsaw, double overtime win in the regional, and kept hearing about Tyrese Jones. I think he just kind of lit it on fire right from the get-go for you guys, and ends up with a 45-point outing in that game. But let's just start there with the game he had. I mean, that's one of the all-time performances when you 45 points in a tournament game like that. Just what kind of led to that? What kind of afternoon did he have there for you?
Yeah, he was great. And he's a guy that he's averaging about 15 a game for us right now. He came in, transferred from Clay after they closed, and took a dip in numbers in terms of points per game, but his percentages are off the charts. He's been playing really well. And he's a guy that just does a little bit of everything. He's had some moments, the St. Joe game, he had 32. We probably didn't give him the ball enough, but he's had some moments in practices and games where he's been good. We've been really good. So to see that transpire and the magnitude of that regional game was one of the best performances I've seen. Especially when you talk about him going 18 to 21 for the field, like that's just, he missed his first one. I think he got fouled on the first one, but he missed 2 threes after that. So outside of that, he was perfect, and it was a great performance and a big time game for us. And it never felt like anything was pressed or he didn't take bad shots. And the guys just found him and got him in good situations. And that was the cool thing about it, is everybody was just kind of caught up in the moment of the game. And at the end of you're like 40, 45, really? Like, yeah, 45. So
I saw your quote after the game about someone said Jones had 20 something at halftime, and you're like you're thinking it was a Warsaw Jones. So I thought that was a funny.
Funny. He has 20. But yeah, we knew that he was going to have some opportunity in the middle of the floor, and he got off to a great start and really carried us from a points perspective. But you also add in the 10 rebounds, the activity he had, and the big time plays he made, especially in the end of game and overtime. It was pretty special.
I remember watching Marvin Schindler last year for you guys, and I know he's kind of been another leader for you. But when you have a group of guys and you bring in Jones, I know he's a veteran guy and he's played a lot of basketball, but coming in from a different school, how did he sort of mesh with the rest of the guys on your team? How did that transition go for him and for you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing about him is just character wise, and also credit to Tyrese and credit to our current group, like just being willing to accept somebody, understanding that Tyrese is a good kid, good person. He means well. He's trying to be a good teammate. He's trying to, come in and be a part of what we're doing instead of, being the guy. And he really, in his game, you don't have to give him the ball for him to be effective. And so that really helped in terms of him molding and meshing into what we do. There's moments in practice when everybody realized, all right, Tyrese Jones can play. He belongs, but I think socially and the attitude that he brought with it was the biggest thing. And he had achieved a lot of individual accolades, coming in from his freshman and sophomore year. There was a lot of hype about him, but it was an opportunity where he could come in and be a part of winning. And we're just glad that it's gone well, and to be able to look back and say, all right, what you came here to do, we've accomplished. From a winning perspective is really cool as a coach, and to give back to the kids in that way.
Alex Daniel joining me here. South Bend Riley is 22-4. They will take on Fishers in the 4A semi-state at Elkhart at 10 a.m. on Saturday. And to talk about the rest of your team a little bit, Alex. I know Marvin obviously is a guy that you have counted on for a while. Just go through some of the other guys, including him, but some of the other guys who kind of make you guys go this year.
Yeah, we have a 5-person senior class. They all play for us. You talk about Marvin Schindler, who's top 100 kid, just got named to the top 60 workout, first team all conference kid. Just every gym he walks in, he's pretty sure he's the best player. That's going to go with him wherever he goes. And so he's awesome, a great kid, a great leader for us. Jalen Barbera, it's kind of just you've seen him consistently grow over the years. Big, strong, athletic downhill guard. And then on ball defensively, he's one of the best. He's taking that challenge every game here, especially in the tournament play. Brandon Williams provides so much energy spark for us, shooting high percentage from the 3-point line. Another senior for us, Keyshawn Wright, who's him and Marvin are forehead to forehead there in size, but man, they're tough. They're athletic. They are about as quick as you can be from one end to the other, and he provides a change of pace for us. And then we got a big man, 6'4", 6'5", Jaden Stamps, who's grown in our program. Had some ups and downs, but really figured it out in his senior year, both on and off the floor, and has provided a big spark for us. Rim protection, vocal leader behind our defense. And so that's our senior class. And then you throw in the mix of Tyrese, as well as a kid named Isaiah Packer, who played sparingly for us last year, has taken on a much bigger role this year and had some big moments for us. I mean, if you see he gets the baseline dunk with about 3 minutes left in the Warsaw game. He's a great vertical athlete, shoots it really well from the outside. So he's come along really well. And then this is somebody. Oh, Tree Johnson, freshman, started every game for us this year. Not the tallest guy, but understands how to play. A great communicator, great leader as a young kid. Really beyond his years in terms of basketball and maturity. And we're really excited about his future. That's 6'7". I think that's everybody. So if I miss it, I apologize. But that's a core group. We play 8 guys, and feel really good about where we're at and where our team's at. Really, defense and defensive rebounding has been our calling card since going into the tournament.
Well, Alex, wanted to ask you too. You get the draw. They do this differently now. These last 3 years with the semi-state draw, and on Sunday. You see Fisher's name come up. I'm sure you knew that was possible. What do you see out of they have a 41-game winning streak for a reason, obviously, but what do you see out of this team? What do you guys have to do, without giving away too much, but what do you feel like you maybe have to do to win this game on Saturday morning?
Yeah. The first thing that got announced was us being in Elkhart. And
that's true.
Excited. So, being down the road at Washington for the regional game and at Elkhart for our Semistate game, like, man, you can't ask for anything better for South Bend, South Bend Riley. And so hopefully we get a big crowd there. And I know people are excited to see us go against the best. Fishers is a big challenge. I think the thing that sticks out to me really is their defense. They have the ability to guard on ball without requiring much help at all, and allows them to really deny reversals and make every pass difficult for you. You end up taking, contested shots or turning the basketball over, bad shots and turnovers, and then that turns into them being one of the best teams in transition in the state. And so the ability to control offense. I mean, we're not going to. Again, we are who we are, right? Like, we're not gonna play this game in the 40s. We're not gonna do much different than we have. We just got to be better at what we've been doing to beat a team like Fishers. So, taking care of the basketball, shot selection, and then getting back in transition, being able to guard them in the half court is going to be really important.
I know you played them at one point this year, but I know that was an odd timing of a game where you're coming off that South Bend Adams situation. And do you take much out of that game, or how do you kind of look at that, Alex, with having maybe seen him one time?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I watched that film one time after we left there, and it was a thing where once it got going downhill, it was hard to stop, and just didn't have the numbers and the bodies. We're missing 85 minutes, of play during that game, and so it was good. I asked the guys before the season. We've gone to Indy 3 times this year, and Fishers was a team that they wanted to go and compete against, and so some of them missed that opportunity, but they got to see it, and some of them got to live it, and we didn't know what to expect at this point in terms of them being really good, the pace of play, and so I think regardless of being there and going through that situation at the time, it probably it was a good thing, to come back and now have the opportunity. You're not coming to this blind. You know what's going to be expected of you, and you know what it's going to take to win. And so I'm thankful that we went through and continued that opportunity. And regardless of what the outcome was the first time, I think it's going to be something we can rely on to go into this game. So.
And you guys typically play down here. I know, when you have good teams, or, maybe even if you don't, you have had good teams here recently, but you play a lot down here and play a good schedule that, I know you played in the North Central Classic, and then you played in the Kokomo tournament, I know, as well, against some good teams. So, I got to think you feel your schedule kind of prepares you. You're not just playing a local schedule. You're kind of branching out and playing. I'm sure that you do that for a reason, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've gotten down to that area, played Indianapolis teams every year, especially over the past 2 seasons. We played in the Fishers tournament 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We played in Kokomo. We played, like you said, earlier this year at North Central. So we've gone down and tried to play, the best games we could find, and also, during our month of June, just to give our guys the experience. And, that's what it's all about. Like, I don't want to be, just a good team in the area. I want to be a good team in the state. And we put that in front of our guys as the opportunity. And they understand that that's a part of it. They want to be known throughout the state. And so we've had some opportunities to go down, and, we lost I thought we laid an egg against Warren Central this year, and in that tournament. What tournament was that?
That was a tip-off classic, yeah.
Forum tip-off. I didn't think we performed very well, but then we go back down to North Central, and we were able to compete really well against Park, Tudor, and Pike. So, continuing to showcase our guys across the state, and get them in front of different people, and it's amazing. When you play well and you perform in those situations, what it can do, not only for your program, but for individuals as well.
Well, thanks so much, Alex. I told you 10 minutes. We're a little over here, but I appreciate you doing it. Again, South Bend Riley plays Fishers at Elkhart on Saturday morning in the Semistate semifinal. Real quick, lastly, have you had a chance to fill out a bracket? Who's your final?
I'm finishing mine right now. I've got my kids done. I really like Florida this year. I just think their guard play, along with those 2 bigs, they're really, really tough. So, yeah, I got Florida right now as a Kentucky fan too. So.
Oh.
We're a little beat up, so I'm taking it easy on us this year. But yeah,
I had to take one Big Ten team, so I took Maryland to upset them, but I don't really believe it. I don't think
it'll all be messed up here in about a couple hours anyway. So
exactly, that's the fun of it. So
yeah.
Well, Alex, good luck on Saturday, and I appreciate you coming on here and joining me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Kyle, we're back here again, joined by Rob Hunt of the Herald-Bulletin. And Rob has one team remaining. I'm sure you're glad to be down to, well, maybe not glad, but you're it streamlines your work, Rob, right?
Sure. Yeah, I was down to one team. I wasn't sure. I thought Daleville gave a good accounting of themselves. I felt like that was going to be a much closer game than the first time they played, and they did give it all they had. But yeah, down to just the Liberty Christian Lions, same last team as I had standing last year.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. Liberty Christian, 18-8. I had a chance to see him last year too at the end of the season. Actually, one time during the season as well, and then I saw them once this year against Brownsburg. I wasn't there in person, but watched the video a little bit. So I do know a little bit about them, and know that they are still young, largely. And they play this Clay City team that's ranked number 1 in the state. I had a chance to see them in person this year, actually twice in person, and very veteran, kind of the opposite, very veteran, very, I don't want to say methodical. They can play different styles, but I would say probably more methodical than Liberty Christian likes to play. So it's got sort of a fascinating, matchup here, Rob. And they're just first going to ask you about Liberty Christian. What kind of makes this team tick? Who are some of the players to watch, and why do you think, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, do you think they have a chance to win this game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think once you get to this stage, I think anybody's got a chance to win. I mean, if Liberty shows up and plays to their potential, they can beat certainly any 1A team in the state. It's one thing they have in common with Clay City is they're both undefeated against 1A teams this year. when you look at Liberty's strength of schedule, it's kind of off the charts, the schedule that Norm Anderson puts together for this 1A team. I mean, you know, they played Anderson twice and Shortridge, Pendleton Heights, and Brownsburg, Lawrence Central, for heaven's sakes, and even a Cathedral team that Liberty Christian led at one point in that game, so fairly well into that game. So, you know, they play a tough schedule, so they're ready for anything they want to go up against. I think the thing that really makes this team tick is they're really together. I mean, they really play together. They share the ball very well. That was evident to me most recently at that regional game. You know, their top scorer did not lead them in scoring that day, but you know, 3 other guys stepped up and had nice games. So, you know, they don't care who gets the credit. They don't care who does the scoring. They just want to win. These are kids that have been playing together since they were, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old. So they know each other really well. And, you know, you mentioned how young they are. They are. You know, their core is the 3 sophomores, TJ English, Kendrick Martin, they call him KK, and then Ty Wayne Fuller. But there's 2 kinds of veteran, I think. I think there's the team, you know, the Liberty Christian has a lot of postseason experience, whereas Clay City, like you said, all the seniors, there's that experience of playing together for 4 years varsity level. So it's kind of which experience kind of takes precedence Saturday. I feel like that's one of those. There's that clash, plus, like you said, the tempo clash, which, I mean, those numbers really jumped off the page at me, that Clay City allows 37 points a game. Liberty Christian scores 65 points a game. So, you know, I talked to Norm about this, you know, and I said, is it vital that this game is in the 50s? Because I think they were held below 50 only twice, lost both those games. And he really wasn't that concerned about it. You know, he believes that defense is going to win this game, regardless of whether it's him or Clay City. Whichever team plays the best defense is going to win.
Yeah, I would say too. You know, obviously Clay City, you know, they would prefer to play a slower style, and a lot of teams they play sort of in that area of the state sort of play similarly. I would say so. You know, some of that is that as well, but yeah, it's going to be a really interesting contrast of styles. Maybe as much as any game in the state on Saturday. Rob, wanted to, you know, with this. You know, with this team, you bring up a good point. I mean, they are, you know, you look at the ages, the years in school, and they are all, you know, not all of them, but the 3 main guys there are all sophomores. But also, they were all part of. It's not like they were not playing last year. They were very close to going to the state finals last year. They lost to Fort Wayne Canterbury in a really close game there in the. I think it was a 3-point game in the semi-state final there. So they were close to doing it last year. How does that, you know, how does that experience maybe help? Did Norm talk much about that this week?
Yeah, he and the kids did. You know, the joke is that if Jordan Harrelson wears a size 13 and instead of a size 14, maybe they win that game, because he hit a go-ahead 3 late, but his heel was on the sideline. So that's kind of the joke around that team. But yeah, they talked about that bitter taste of coming up so close last year, even as freshmen. What a long bus. I mean, it was a long bus ride home anyway, but it made it even longer. It's that it was very quiet. They were deep in thought, but they mourned it for 24 hours, and then they went back to work to get ready for this year. And that was the whole goal, was to get to Gainbridge, to take that next step. And, you know, we talk about the young kids, but, you know, they've got 3 really strong seniors too, who really kind of helping with that leadership role, kind of helping guide them and keep, you know, emotions in check. A couple of the kids are kind of fiery. You know, they're able to keep them in check, and they all talked about that to a man, about wanting to get back and get this done. So I think that's a big motivating factor for this group. Amarian Page, who's their 6'5" post kid, really talked about that at length when we met with the team on Wednesday, about wanting to take that next step and how painful it was last year walking off the court. They said they were numb. They couldn't believe they lost. They were so confident that they were going to win that game.
And Rob, you mentioned Jordan Harrelson. He was, of course, a lot of people around here know his brother Jalen played for Fishers for 2 years. One of the best players I've ever seen. Covered a couple of years there, and he was phenomenal at a very high level right from the get-go, basically from game one. What's Jordan? Obviously, he's not that talented as his brother, but he is a junior now, and he's obviously getting a lot of playing time for this Liberty Christian team. But what's his game like, and how is he contributing for his team?
Yeah, he's instant offense off the bench. He comes in usually first or second off the bench, and he can step out and hit a 3-point shot. He's also kind of a big, strong kid. He can play inside, grab some rebounds. I think Saturday off the bench, he had 9 points, played great defense too. I think he had 3 steals and a block, and really kind of has an all-around game. He can go inside if needed. He can step out and hit the perimeter shot, handles the ball pretty well. There's not many. Saying he's not Jalen is not a derogatory statement. There's not many. I mean, Jalen's a McDonald's All-American. So, but Jordan's a fine player in his own right. And there's a lot of teams around this area would love to have Jordan starting for them. But for this Liberty team, he comes off the bench and is instant offense. Whatever this team needs, he's able to provide.
Rob, I wanted to ask you too. I mean, it's kind of an interesting dynamic with Anderson basketball, right? The Anderson team obviously had a great season. They've kind of been building up these last few years. Have had really good teams under Donnie Bowling. But what's kind of the what's the scene like now with Liberty Christian being so good? Now year after year, it seems like they're a team also, kind of a smaller school team, but sort of you think about the old days of Anderson, and you had multiple teams who were really good back in the day, and then it kind of was just the one, and now Liberty Christian coming along. But what's sort of the landscape of basketball there in Anderson like now, and how are the fans? Do they follow both teams?
There's some that do follow both, especially since with Liberty being the private school, you get some transfers, you get some kids who were maybe in the Anderson system. There's several that at one time or another played at Anderson, but are now at Liberty Christian. So you get that with the city schools. And I don't want to leave out the third Anderson schools, Anderson Prep, who had the best season in their program's history this year, won 20 games, but ran into this Liberty team in that sectional. It was actually a really fun season for basketball in Anderson. All 3 teams were really fun to watch. Anderson Prep won 20 games. Anderson wins 21, but they run into this Mount Vernon team, which that loss is looking like a better loss all along. The further they keep going in the tournament, kind of going into that sectional, thinking Greenfield was going to be the big, block with Braylon Mullins and what he's capable of. But Mount Vernon, what a team, what a run they've had. Just a lot of fun. I think there's starting to be a little bit more rivalry. Anderson and Liberty have played in the county championship game the last couple of years. With recent events, that event may be going away, but and they were competitive games. I mean, that's what makes it fun. And all these kids, they grow up together, and then they end up on different high schools, so you get some of that rivalry things going on. And Liberty and APA has always been an intense rivalry because of they're the conference. They're both about the same size schools. APA took them. Almost had a beat during the regular season, lost by 2, and then it was a little more one-sided in sectional. But it's been a pretty fun season here in the Anderson area.
Absolutely, it's cool to see Anderson back again and strong basketball.
The whole area is just better. It's better when Anderson's good, right? I mean, it just makes everything around here better basketball wise.
How often do you get asked when they're going to open the Wigwam again?
More often than is necessary, because as much as we'd all love to see it, I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
I get asked a lot, so I'm sure you do. You do more than I do.
Oh yeah, all the time. I was at the Hall of Fame banquet last night, and of course there was pretty strong Anderson flavor last night, so that topic came up many times. And Troy Lewis referenced it, Ron Heklinski referenced it during the speeches that those memories at the Wigwam, and it was coming up out there at the tables, and I keep telling people there was a movement at one time to try to get it done. I just think there's too many renovations, and I don't think people's hearts are in it. And frankly, I don't see the gyms filling up as they are now. I don't know that they're definitely wouldn't fill up a Wigwam. Let me put it this way: if they were to miraculously open it I'm sure the first couple games they would sell out just for the experience. People would want to go back to it, but yeah, on a week to week basis, they're not filling up the gyms here as it is.
I agree with you. I think that's 100% accurate, and as cool as it would be to see maybe a game there, here or there, but I'm not sure it's worth that to do just for that reason. But again, Rob Hunt, I've kept you longer than I told you, but again, Rob's going to be covering the 1A game at Seymour, Liberty Christian, Clay City. Liberty Christian 18-8, Clay City 25-1. That game will follow another really good game. Orleans and Hauser. That Seymour gym is going to be hopping for both those games, so that'll be a blast. Clay City is going to bring everybody and everyone they know to that game as well. So that will be a blast. Are you going to go to the 10 a.m. game too, Rob?
I'm going to try to get down there early. I'm really fascinated to see that first game as well, and that it's interesting you bring up that point about the teams traveling. There's been a little buzz on social media about, Liberty Christian's not going to bring very many fans, and compared to the other schools where the whole town is going to show up, right? And we've been there when Frankton or LaPel goes on one of those small teams go on deep runs, and Norm Anderson took that personally. He's out there. He's a big community guy. He ran for local office. He really gets out there in the youth centers and does work. He's putting the word out. He wants, Anderson fans, APA fans, whatever, to show up and give his team some support, because they are Anderson's representative now and in this tournament. So he's hoping to drum up some support, maybe surprise some of those folks who are bad mouthing Anderson over the last few days.
I tell you, the last couple of times I've seen them, they have had great crowds at their games. So I would say they may not be Clay City big of crowd, but they will be there in support for sure. So I think that's accurate. But Rob, too, wanted to ask before I let you go here, who do you got in your bracket for the March Madness?
Didn't fill one out.
Oh man.
Yeah, I honestly, I really haven't watched a whole lot of college basketball this year. That seems to be getting less and less over the years. I almost feel like I would have to pick an SEC team, maybe an Auburn or I hate to go chalk. Yeah. Back in the days when I was picking them every year, I was always one of those guys who tried to find that 5 versus 12 upset. And sorry, Purdue, I picked against you guys a lot, but sure. Let's go Auburn.
Well, that's what I got. I got Auburn beating Tennessee in the championship game. So there you go.
Well, sorry about your bracket, but my picks are usually the kiss of death too. So
well, good. I haven't watched much college either this year. I don't know why. I just between high school and I do watch quite a bit of NBA. I guess it kind of fell between the wayside, but anyway.
That's the funny thing about being a sports writer. You get immersed in what you're covering, and then you really can't watch it, or sometimes you're just not in the mood to watch more sports. As big as sports fans as we are, sometimes you're just like, nah, not really interested in watching it today.
No, I'm that way too, and it depends on the night. Yeah, now I'll watch these games tonight and tomorrow, and
sure,
if I can, when I have time. But yeah, Rob Hunt again from the Herald-Bulletin joining me, and I appreciate you doing this, Rob.
Absolutely appreciate it. You're one of us. You do good. You can do great work down there as well, statewide, and I know the fans and the players appreciate what you do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you doing this. All right, our next guest, as we preview the semi-state round this weekend, all around the state, is Trent Moorhead from Hauser High School. And Trent, this got to be a dream come true for you, being a multi-generational coach. You've been around basketball for a long time, but wanted to first start with your team. You guys were playing in the 1A semi-state. there at Seymour against another really good team in Orleans. That's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere and game, I'm sure. But just first of all, with your team, Trent, I know you guys have kind of been building for this, over these last couple of years. But how have you been able to get it done and kind of get this team over the hump here in the tournament?
Yeah, I think it goes down to having guys that are really coachable and that want to be the best versions of themselves on and off the floor. We've got such a special group of guys. As you mentioned, we've been building towards this. This is our third year together. A lot of the juniors and seniors that we have right now have been playing varsity basketball since they were freshmen and sophomores. And so a couple of years ago, we had to learn a lot. But you could always see the grit and the determination, even when they were playing varsity as freshmen. We hung with some teams that we didn't have any business hanging around 2 years ago. And then you fast forward to last year, we have an 18-win season, win our conference for the first time in a while, and just had a tremendous year up until the sectional championship game. We got beat on a last-second shot against Switzerland County. And I think that really, prompted a different kind of determination from our group this offseason. It's a veteran-led group that made sure we weren't going to be in that spot again. And they've just been motivated all year long to get us in a good position. And you've seen the results this season with the success we've had. So the seniors that we've got, and Colin Buck and Ledger Gelfius, Tayshawn Tungate, and then Alex Cord, who's played a big role as well for us, have done a great job leading. When you mix that with juniors like Stryker Gill, Gavin Keller, two guys that have played a bunch of varsity basketball, Cameron Blair as well. It's just a special group having a special season, and we want to keep it rolling.
You mentioned some of your guys there, Trent. I was going to ask you about, so you mentioned kind of all of them right there, but you're a very, very balanced team. I know Colin leads you in scoring about 14 a game, but you have four guys actually who average in double figures. And then you mentioned Stryker Gill, who might lead with the world in assists with what he's done this year for you. But yeah, I mean, how much is kind of, you don't rely necessarily on one guy. How important is that to your success you've had this year?
Yeah, we've said all year long, we feel like we have 7 to 8 guys that can go out on any given night and score 15 to 20 points and be the best player on the floor. And that's just really difficult to match up with opposing teams. Talking about Stryker Gill, the way he sees the floor, it's just uncanny. He's a true point guard, and the way he's able to set up the other guys on the floor. And just a lot of guys that understand matchups and understand mismatches and know when to feed the hot hand. Our guys understand when they're having a great night offensively and when it's time to give the ball to somebody else to do that. And it never impacts the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's why we've been able to have some really dominant performances. We talk about the balanced scoring. We feel that all those guys are really great defenders as well. And that's really important for us to play the type of basketball that we want to play, where we're going to pressure you and turn you over and get easy points in transition. But as a coach, it's so nice to be able to trust so many different guys with the basketball to make the right decisions. Ledger Gelfius and Stryker are two guys with 50-plus made threes, shooting almost 40% on the season. And then Tayshawn Tungate and Gavin Keller are two guys that can get to the rim with either hand against really good defenders. And with Colin Buck in the middle, having a 6'5" post presence that's as athletic as he is, it just is a well-rounded, well-balanced group, and that's why we've been hard to stop this year.
I know Hauser's a place that really loves its basketball, but you guys, I think, probably opened some eyes last week. I know the Hauser fans know how good you guys are, but maybe around the state with what you guys did against Lutheran, that's a team that's very talented. Was kind of peaking at the right time going into that game. How did that game go? It ended up being 70-52, Trent, but how were you guys able to beat the Saints last week?
Yeah, I think we heard a lot of the talk about, if there's going to be a regional upset, it felt like that was a game that was focused on just because of Lutheran getting healthy at the right time and obviously the past success they've had. And we felt almost like within our group that people were just expecting us to overlook them. And that was just never the case. These guys have always taken the next game as the most important. We've had that mentality all year long that no matter who it is, whoever's next on the schedule, that's the one that's going to be the most important for us. So we just kept that mentality, had a great week of preparation, understood what Lutheran did well, which was, getting the ball to the basket. And they're so athletic and dominant in that area, scoring with the size that they have. We wanted to make sure that we took away that strength and made them perimeter shooters and then rebounded the ball well. So that's a really good team that we were able to have a really good performance against from start to finish. But you alluded to the Hauser crowd and the people supporting us. That felt like a home game in Martinsville, which was really special. The way this community comes out and supports the program. By the time our guys took the floor for the 20-minute warm-up, our side was completely full, and we were spilling into different sections in the gym at Martinsville. And it's easy to get motivated to play for a community that wants to see the basketball team succeed like ours does. So was proud of the way we were able to play, but that one's in the past now. We're on to Orleans.
Well, I almost get chills in my back thinking about what that scene is going to be like in Seymour, because I know you guys will show up. I know I've been to Orleans. I know they will show up too. And Coach Tom Bradley there, I was down there a couple of years ago. They had a 4 overtime game against Lagodi, and just an absolute battle. And a lot of the kids on that team are still part of this year's team. But without giving away too much, I know they have a group with Rylan Crocker and Alex DeWitt, who are key to what they do. Bryce Jones as well. They are a team that I think is kind of similarly tested, like you guys are. They're 22-4 and play a really tough schedule. Come out of a tough sectional too. What do you see out of Orleans, or what maybe concerns you, or what do you feel like you have to do to beat that team?
Yeah, first off, just so much respect for Coach Bradley and what he's done at Orleans. I've got to hear him talk at some clinics in the past couple of years. You can just tell they're a really fundamental, a disciplined, a well-coached team. Rylan Crocker is one of the best catch-and-shoot players I've seen on film or in person all year long. So obviously he's a threat that you have to be ready to tackle. And then Alex DeWitt inside is just a strong presence with a nose for the basketball. And they like to play at their pace. So we'll have to do our best to disrupt, the set actions that they like to execute with and try to control the pace and the tempo of the game. But I'm sure that's what Coach Bradley's telling his team as well. We expect it to be a great challenge. At this point in the season, all teams still playing are great, and that's the case here. So we're looking forward to that, and we expect a great atmosphere there in Seymour. We know they'll bring a crowd, and we certainly hope we'll bring a big one as well.
Trent, I ran into your dad down at South Ripley earlier this season. Your dad, Rob, of course, coached, is in administration now. But were you able to follow? And just to talk about Trent a little bit, he comes from a line of coaches. His grandfather coached at back in the day at Tyson Auditorium there, and such a neat place down there in South Ripley in Versailles down there. But how getting into coaching, Trent, how was that an easy decision for you, or did you feel pretty comfortable that you were going to do that even going back to high school?
Yeah, definitely. I knew early on, and just being a public educator, I'm the 10th member of my family to go into public education. So I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I grew up, dad, obviously a coach, but he became principal when I was really young. So I was around the gym and around the school all the time. My mom was a guidance counselor at high school at South Dearborn. So that was always something I knew I wanted to do. I love basketball, obviously, and always hearing the stories of my dad on the sidelines and hearing him talk about his dad, my grandfather, Gus, back in the 50s, coaching at Versailles and becoming the first coach at South Ripley. It was just something I knew I would love to do. Went to IU and got started as early as I could. First coaching job I had was a 7th grade assistant at Edgewood Junior High School. My brother, Brad, who's 2 years older than me, was actually the head coach of that team. So Brad's the JV coach at Martinsville now. But we take a lot of pride in how we represent ourselves on the sidelines and being, stand-up coaches. And my dad started a thing a while back. He called my brother and I CM3 and CM4 for Coach Moorhead the third and Coach Moorhead the fourth. So my dad being Coach Moorhead the second, my grandfather being Coach Moorhead the first. So we actually got that tattooed on our arms. Brad and I did CM3 and CM4, and my dad got the same tattoo. So if that gives any indication of how much this means to us as a family, but being able to share this ride with dad and my brother, it just means the world. Two guys that have really supported me in every step of my journey. And it just means a lot, knowing the history that we've got to continue that, proud to do it and wouldn't want to be doing it any other place than Hauser with the people that we've got and the community. It's just been really special and we want to keep the ride rolling.
Trent, I know you guys played South Ripley this season. It's one of your 3 losses, and they were an outstanding team. Obviously, they're ranked number 1 at one point there in 2A. I think ended up 2 in the final poll. And unfortunately for them and the South Ripley fans, they fell a little bit short last week against Forest Park in the 2A regional. But what's it like playing against them? Is that something you hope to keep doing or want to do?
Oh, it's been a challenge going against Cole Henry and Blaine Ward the last couple of years. So I'm glad those guys are graduating and gone. But it is special going back and coaching in that gym. You try to keep the main thing the night of, which is the game, obviously. But seeing so many people from that community, which is obviously a special place, it's always fun going back there. We were fortunate last year in the sectional to play there and actually knock off South Ripley on Friday night, which was just a huge win for our program. And it was special to do it there. But, that's another place a lot like Hauser where, basketball is really important to the people there. So going back home and getting to coach in that gym is certainly fun. I think it puts a lot of stress on my dad. He's always worried about what colors to wear and, who to root for. But he does a good job. A lot of times he'll go up and broadcast those games. So he does some broadcasting still on the side. So that keeps him very neutral. But yeah, it's great going back home and coaching. And Coach Beach has done a terrific job there. Got a lot of respect for him. And they had an outstanding season, certainly as well.
And I heard they're going to try to play a throwback game at the old Tyson Auditorium next year. So hopefully I can get down and cover that. But I guess you guys would be hosting next year's game, I'm assuming. So it wouldn't be that one probably.
And we've actually, I believe, got it set up and inked now that we'll play our game at the Hoosier Gym in Knightstown next year.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be another cool a wrinkle to that tradition of the Hauser South Ripley game. So we're looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, just Trent, what's this week been like for you? I mean, how jam packed with stuff? Are you guys kind of shortening practices, or how is the week different maybe than it's been throughout the season for you guys?
Yeah, I think we try to keep the practices and our focus the same way we've kept it all year long. There's obviously a lot of outside, I wouldn't call it distraction, but attention that we're receiving, which has been good. And a lot of it's positive within the community. Spirit days all week at school here, a pep session coming up on Friday. So a great practice last night at Seymour, getting to go down to the Semistate site. All that stuff is added to the fanfare of the week. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to locking in on the preparation and the scouting report and understanding what it's going to take to play well at 10 a.m. on Saturday. And that's where we're trying to keep our focus. That's where it's going to be the next couple of days in practice. So the added bonus of the community support and the fanfare around school is great, but doing our best to just keep the same rhythm and routine that's gotten us to this spot.
Well, awesome. Well, Trent, I appreciate you doing this. Again, Hauser plays at 10 a.m., like you said, at Seymour against Orleans. That should be a phenomenal game and a great atmosphere. Again, Trent Moorhead, appreciate you coming on here with me, and tell your dad I said hello, and best of luck on Saturday.
Will do. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for what you do for high school sports.
You bet. Thanks, Trent.
Well, Kyle Neddenrip again here, joined by Eli Henson of Manchester High School. And, Coach, congratulations on making the semi-state and having another week of practice.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, I know this has been a fun ride for you guys. I wanted to start with Gavin Betton, who is a guy who, he's done a lot for your program. Obviously, he's, I believe, over 2,000 points now for his career.
Yep.
He's going to Grace College, obviously, and but what is, when you think about him and what he's done for your program, where do you kind of start with that, and how important is he to getting you here to this point?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, Gavin's kind of he's been very consistent ever since he was a freshman. As a freshman, he started right away. He was 6'3", 6'4", still developing. But, I mean, as a freshman, he was able to go out and get 18, 19 points a game with 10 rebounds. And nothing's changed. That's been his consistency his whole career. Whenever you have somebody that's got 2,000 points, I think he's like at 2,200 points almost now with 1,000 rebounds. It's tough. I don't know how many players in the history of Indiana basketball that have that. It's probably not many. And that's just something that what you're going to get from him every game. You're going to get full intensity on both ends of the floor. He's going – I think maybe once this season he's been under 20 points. So whenever that you're going in – and he's seen box and one, triangle and twos with him and Ethan this year. But, you always know what to expect with Gavin. You know what he's going to give you every single night. And that's hard to find. And that's been the way that's been that way for 4 years now. And, just for him to, I can't remember what their total record is. but the last 2 seasons they won 18 games. This freshman year they won 10, and this year they got 23 wins. And I think it's something like 56-13 for their total record in the last 3 years. And it's brought this program to a whole different level. It's brought some excitement around the community. Our youth numbers have gone way up since just Gavin and Ethan have been freshmen to now. And it's been awesome. It's been a special kind of journey for the last 4 years being a part of this team.
And you bring up, Gavin's numbers: 26.1 points, 11.9 rebounds, 4.3 assists. I mean, all of these numbers.
Good blocks, good steals.
Yeah, I mean, really high. But you also mentioned Ethan Hendricks too, and I wanted to ask about him because obviously he's a senior.
Yeah,
he's almost 18 points a game and over 4 assists as well. But how do those two play off each other? What is Ethan's role for you guys?
Ethan's our point guard. He's been our point guard since he was a freshman, and he was a 5'4" point guard as a freshman. But he what he lacks in size, he makes up with knowledge. And he's our strongest player. He's our quickest player. He's our toughest player. Every single game, I don't care if the kid's 6. Just like, for example, we played Tipton last week. Grady Carpenter 6'6". Well, Ethan guarded him. So it doesn't matter. I mean, that's going to be his role going forward for the rest of this season as well. Whoever the team's best player is, he's going to be on them. Usually whoever their best guard is. But he does such a good job just with toughness. He fights through screens. So being able to go do what he does defensively and then have the energy to still go and run the show for us as a point guard on our offense, he's done such a good job. He has a high motor and he never gets tired. This is a kid that plays 32 minutes a night. I would never take him and Gavin off the floor. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I'm going to let them play through 2 fouls in the first quarter because we're a completely different team with them off the floor. And they've done such a good job. Just kind of, it's all about consistency this year. You know what you're going to get. They never let their defense affect their offense. So they might have some off nights, but they never let that take into effect of how hard they're going to go defensively. And that's been the difference with us this year. It's like, yeah, we can score with about anybody, but it's our defense that's kind of setting us apart. Those guys have been really locked in defensively this year, and it's just kind of been a different intensity level than what it's been the last couple of years. And that's a lot of credit goes to those two because they picked up their intensity level, and that's become contagious for the rest of our guys on the team.
I should have mentioned this at the top too. Again, joined by Eli Henson from Manchester, and Manchester 23-2. They played Jimtown 16-10 in the Class 2A Semistate at 1:00 Eastern in Michigan City. Eli, I know that Jimtown, their record might not pop out like some of the other teams playing this weekend, but when you look a little deeper, they are undefeated against opponents in 2A.
We're both going into the game undefeated in 2A, and that's, to me, the more I watch them. 16-10, I don't get it because I watch them play and I'm like, wow, like they have all the tools to be a 20, but they're in semi-state for a reason, right? To me, they're the second best team we'll face this year, or probably third behind McConaughey and Homestead. I feel like those two teams are very good teams. Those are our 2 losses, but I think Jimtown's right behind those two, just because they have size, they have good guard play. They do a very good job defensively, just kind of game planning about what to do against those other teams' best players. They do a very good job, and I feel like they're going to be one that they're really going to try to slow us down and make us work, and that's fine. I told our team, I know we go score 60 to 70 points a game, but we don't need to. It's like we need to focus on the defensive end. I don't care if we win 30-28. All we're trying to do at this level is just win. And Jimtown they play really physical. They rebound very well. Everybody thinks we have a lot of size. We don't. We have one kid that's 6'6", and the rest of us are 5'7", 5'8", 6 foot, 6 foot, and 5'11" are our starters. So it's not like we're blowing anybody away with our size, but our kids have toughness. They do a good job. They're ball hawks. They work well together, going towards all 5 of them collectively. Go rebound. They defend. They go after the defensive boards. They do a good job with that. So we really got to match their physicality. That's a big thing. We got to match their physicality. We got to match their toughness. We got to do a good job taking away they have 2 very good players, and their guard play is very good. So just being able to contain them, making them work to get, because they're a 3-point shooting team. They love to shoot threes. Being able to make them kind of just do something they're uncomfortable with and try to make some of those other role players maybe take a majority of their shots. I think that's going to be the key to our success. But they're a very, very good team, very well coached team. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from them because I watched them at the start of the year to what they look like now, and they're a completely different team.
One thing I haven't asked the other coaches so far, Eli, I was curious from your perspective, are you able to scout much the other two games or the other two
teams? It's a tough week. This is something I haven't. This is my first regional championship, so this is the first time I've had to scout 3 teams. So we're all in practice. I just have us focused on what we need to do versus Jimtown, but in my mind, what I've been doing nightly, daily is watching a lot of Wapahani and Gary 21st as well, just so I know what we need to do. And we've kind of been implementing a few things for each one of them. The kids don't really know that we're doing that. They might just think that's kind of the game plan for Jimtown, but we've been implementing some things and drilling some things that I feel are going to give us a little bit of an advantage versus Wapahani and Gary 21st as well. But our focus is just on Jimtown. Well, what do we have to do to get to that final game? But then once we get there, we do have a game plan in place for both of those teams, and that will be something that will be shared probably with the kids tomorrow. But like I said, we're just kind of focused on what do we have to do for Jimtown right now.
I know you're from a family of coaches as well. Eli, how did you kind of get started? And I know your dad is able to coach with you too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's been a good experience. But I mean, I got started because of him. I mean, my brother was a coach as well. So he was coaching in North Miami and I was an assistant. And then my dad was the girls coach at North Miami. And then after that, he wanted to try a new challenge and he ended up going to North White, who was one of the, I think they were on like a 53 game losing streak a year prior to that. So he went there and that's kind of how I got into that, because here I was, a 24-year-old coach at that time, was the assistant. He had this all planned out that he was going to go there for a year, retire, and then I can kind of take over that program, which they were, that I'm grateful that they allowed me to do that, because as a 24-year-old, I don't know what I really know about being a head coach, probably not much, but somehow we were able to start winning. And, that's how it all began with me, is just, the good thing about that is my dad was 30 years experience, was able to sit with me on the bench the first couple of years to get me started, help get my feet wet a little bit, learn the things I needed to learn. So to have him around and to have him around now, it's been awesome. I got to experience a regional championship or playing in the regional championship with him when regionals was two games at North White, and then be able to experience it, winning that with him last week was pretty something special.
And also, just being at Manchester, Eli, how's the community kind of responded?
It's been crazy. I mean, the student body has been, they're all excited. Like, I mean, here we are, it's almost a 2-hour trip, but I know so many of these students that are going to go support us, even though there's all kinds of different things, indoor track, there's all kinds of different things going on that day. But I know so many of them are excited to come support us. And it's all because they think we can win. They think we can do something special. Not like what we haven't done is already special enough, but they're all behind us. This community is all about, they want to get to a state. They want that experience, and we want that for them. But I'm just proud of how the players have affected the community. If you have a good team and not so good of players off the court, you wouldn't get that kind of support. But everybody has bought into this team because they've been following them for 4 years. A lot of these guys have played varsity since they were freshmen. But you just kind of get to learn how good of kids they are in the classroom, outside of the classroom, on the basketball court, off the basketball court. They're such good kids. And I think that's kind of played a big factor in everybody getting excited for them a little bit more, because they've seen how hard they've worked to get to this moment. And, they're all behind them right now.
Probably a lot of kids there who want to grow up to be Gavin, right? I mean, that's
cool. Yeah. I mean, that's there's little personalized jerseys with Benton and Hendricks. I mean, it's been awesome. I mean, it's our youth numbers in the last 2 years have gone way up just because of those guys in the program. So that's, I credit them for, it's not like Manchester had a bad program. It was a good program, but we just kind of took it to a different level. And that's been something that's not because of me. I can play a little bit of a factor in that. That's because of the players. I mean, they've done a good job of making sure they've got the youth excited. This community is excited. And I mean, it's been an awesome 2 weeks. I can't imagine what it's going to be like if we win semi-state, how pumped up everybody will be. It's going to ruin some spring break plans for people, but we don't really care at this point. We can cancel some spring break plans. That's all right.
You can go in the summer.
Yep, we can go in the summer.
Well, again, Manchester plays in the semi-state against Jimtown in 2A at Michigan City. Eli, I appreciate you fitting this in. Lastly, who you got in your bracket? Who you got winning?
I have Houston. I have Houston winning it all, only because everybody's picking Florida and Auburn, so I have to go outside of the box a little bit. So I went with Houston, and they look pretty good today. I watched a little of them earlier. So, yeah, I mean, who do you have, Kyle?
I ended up taking Auburn, but
Auburn, yeah. I mean, Auburn and Florida are the favorites, but I have them in the Final Four, but I had to go with Houston just to change it up. I've never picked Houston, so I got to change it up. Maybe this is the year Kelvin Sampson can get it done.
I like the way they play.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. They defend, and that's what it's all about when it comes to this time of the year. So,
all right. Well, Eli Henson, appreciate you coming on here and joining us. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Well, I want to thank all my guests for coming on and joining me here, and I wanted to kind of touch on pretty much all the games and all the matchups, just to run through everything for you for the semi-state on Saturday, and then go through some of the predictions as well. You can read, again, all of this stuff on IndyStar.com. Friday morning, all of that should be out, as well as got a feature on Luke Ertl. By the time you may listen to this, that may be out already. It probably will be. The Hall of Fame Classic field is also out as of 8 a.m. Friday morning. So that will be, you can read about that as well. But just to go through the semi-state pairings here, in the predictions, South Bend Riley. So starting with 4A in the north, you have South Bend Riley 22-4 against Fisher's 28-0. Of course, Fisher's 41-game winning streak going into this game. And, I just can't see, I think Riley's going to basically be, and you heard Coach Daniel talk about that, they're going to be who they are. They've got good players. Is it going to be enough to beat Fisher's? You'd be hard-pressed to not make Riley an underdog in this situation. They do have the advantage of being close to home. And, that could play a factor. Fisher's second straight year, they've had to go up to Elkhart and play. It is a pretty good haul. We've talked about other schools making that haul, but I think this team gets through, wins that early game. I said Fisher's by 13. And then the second game, you have Homestead and Crown Point. Crown Point is the favorite, I'd say, in that one, 22-2. Homestead 22-5. Crown Point's really good. I think they'll get through this game and put Homestead away. Homestead's got a nice player, Mac Welker, who's a sophomore. So Chris Johnson's going to have a good team there moving forward the next couple of years. And again, Crown Point will be too. Mostly juniors, Dikembe Shaw, their top guy, but then Mason Darrell, Kingston Rhodes, Bryce Peters, those guys are all juniors. So they're basically coming back, barring some transfer situations, coming back intact next year as well. So I said Crown Point by 8, and then I took Fisher's by 5. I think Crown Point will play them close in the championship game that night on Saturday night. But, there is some familiarity. Crown Point has played Fisher's. They played them last year in the semi-state. So there is some familiarity there. And Clint Swan does a great job. He'll have that team as ready as they can be. I just think Fisher's there's too many ways they can beat you. And even if they have an off shooting night, they seem to find a way. Defensively, they're really good. They get out on you and make you turn the ball over, and really spread the floor well on offense. The team, in my opinion, to beat them is going to have to beat them kind of like a Westfield does, and I think Crown Point can do some of the same things there to stay in that game and make it interesting. But it's really tough. I mean, there's so many, and I know that people may talk about their size being somewhat of a limit, but John Anthony Hallfer has, he might as well list him at 6'6", the way he plays. Nathan Baker has pretty good size too. But their lack of size doesn't seem to ever be that big of an issue. They rebound well, and they definitely share the ball really, really well. Very, can't say enough, about what a tough team that is, but they'll have some challenges up there. I think Riley will play them much better than they did during the season, and the winner of that, and I think it'll be Crown Point. They'll play at night. and I think that would be a tough matchup for them. But I see Fishers getting through. 3A at Logansport, you have Mechanicawa, South Bend, St. Joe. That's a fun matchup. Very high-scoring teams. Mechanicawa's got Josiah Ball. I saw him play in person this year, one game. Really good player. I just think South Bend, St. Joe, they're going to put up a lot of points, and I think they will in this game. They are the second highest, or they're the highest scoring team in the state. And Mechanicawa, Ball is the second highest leading scorer behind Braylon Mullins. So, and Mechanicawa scores about, I think they're fifth in the state in scoring too. AJ Kelly, another guy who's over 17 points a game for that Mechanicawa team. I just think South Bend St. Joe's got too many offensive weapons. Chase Knesny, 23 points a game. Nick Shrewsbury, over 13 a game. Ethan Roseman, his addition has been big for them. And then Elijah King, a sophomore, over 13 a game. So just all kinds of players. This is a really good situation for South Bend St. Joe. It's an easier semi-state for certain than in the South. So I think they'll get through. I think they'll beat Mechanicawa by 10. The second game I took an upset. It's Delta and East Chicago Central. Delta's allowing just 44.7 points a game. I really, Mark Detweiler's teams always seem to play well in the tournament. I think that's partially because of what he does with those teams, obviously. But this is kind of I saw he called this kind of a no-name team a little bit last week, but sometimes those are the teams that do the best this time of year. Bronson Edwards made a big shot last week in their win over Blackhawk Christian. Jordan Fernie's about 13 a game. Edwards about 11. Lucas Bragg about 10 points a game. East Chicago Central, very good team. Dominic Murphy, I think he'll be an Indiana All-Star. He leads them at about 22.5 a game and 8.5 rebounds. So Delta's going to have to keep him from going off on them, and I think he might. But I took an upset there. I said Delta by 2. I don't know if it matters though, because I've got South Bend St. Joe winning that night game by 6 over Delta. Could be Chicago. That may be a better matchup for South Bend St. Joe. Not for them, but just for a better game. So, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised to see Chicago Central playing in that night game, but I think regardless, I think South Bend St. Joe comes out of there and makes a second straight trip to the state finals after being runner-up last year. 2A North is at Michigan City. Wapahani has the longest trip of any team in the semi-state this week. They're going all the way from Delaware County across the state over there to Michigan City, and I think if I remember right, that's like a 160-mile drive. So if you're interested in mileage, which a lot of people seem to be about the semi-state draws, that's maybe the most interesting one. Wapahani's ranked number 1, but had some trouble last week with Western Boone. They trailed that game in the fourth quarter, had to come back. They really shoot the ball extremely well, 47% from the three-point line. A team, of course, that played in the state finals last year, lost to Brownstown Central. And some guys back from that team for Coach Luce, Camden Bell, about 18 points a game. Nate Luce, about 15 a game. And Eli Andrews, also a junior, who is about 11 per game. All those guys can shoot it. So they're going to need to shoot well, because Gary 21st is probably the more talented team here. They took out a really good Fort Wayne Lures team by 15 last week in the regional. So Terrence Hayes, about 21 a game, 8 rebounds. Demetrius Williams, 15.6 and about 10 rebounds a game. And then a couple other guys, Ronald Mosley and Jacoby Donaldson, also in double figure scoring, just over double figures. So the better team, the more talented team, is probably not the team ranked number 1 here, Gary 21st. I took them to win by 6 in Michigan City in that first game. And then Manchester and Jimtown, you heard a little bit about that game earlier with the coach coming on and joining me, Coach Henson. So you heard about them. I think Manchester, this is a team obviously really hungry, excited about their group they've got this year. Jimtown, I think, is a team better than its record shows by the teams that they've played in their class. So I would not say this is a runaway type game. Manchester 23-2 though. Jimtown 16-10. And I did take Manchester to win by 4. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think Manchester gets through and wins the early game, and then the second game. And Class 2A there. I'm sorry, that is the second game. So you get Gary 21st at 11, and then Manchester Jimtown at 1. So you have Gary 21st playing Manchester in the night game, and I took Gary 21st by 5 to advance to the state championship game. In Class 1A in the North, Lafayette Jeff, you've got Couts against Monroe Central. Couts 23-4, Monroe Central 19-6. And this Couts team, they made it 4 years ago. I went up actually and covered a game, did a story on them. Obviously, this is a totally different team. You got new players on there, but it is a program that's had success here lately under Kevin Duzan, their coach there. So, Lucas Kleckner is their top guy, about 19 points a game. He's a junior and about 5 assists. And Ryan Rosnowski, too, is a senior, averaging over 10 points a game. So they came through a tough sectional, beat Tri-County last week in the regional. Monroe Central, they knocked off Daleville last week in the regional. Easton Foster is their top player. He's a senior, 21.5 and 10 rebounds. So he's a load. And Luke Morgan also over 11 points a game for that Monroe Central team. I took Couts by 2. I think this is kind of a toss-up type game and maybe a tougher game to read, just not knowing as much about each other. It's kind of, and a lot of these teams don't. A lot of these teams have not seen each other this year, as you would expect in the semi-state game. And then the second game there will be Triton against Clinton Prairie. Triton seems like they're always making runs in the tournament. I remember when I first started doing this, it seemed that they were in the state finals 4 times in not in a row, but in pretty small amount of time. They won it in 08, went back in 09, 11, and 13. Didn't win at any of those last 3 years, but seems like they're always in the tournament late. Jason Groves, their coach, been there for a long time. And they lead the state in points allowed, 33.8 points a game. So some of their guys, Gage Riffle, Julian Swanson, Brady Wood. Clinton Prairie, I think, is again, you talk about hungry teams, the first sectional title since 82, and first time to get to this point. With the regional championship, they beat Lafayette Central Catholic in overtime last week. Jake McGraw is their top guy, 24.3 points, 7.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists, just great numbers across the board. Alex Farley, 16.4 points a game for that Clinton Prairie team. So I took Clinton Prairie by 8. I think they have more firepower. And then I actually took Clinton Prairie to win the next game as well over Couts by 7 and advance to the state finals in the north half of 1A. So Clinton Prairie is my pick there in South. And so in 4A in the South, we'll be at Newcastle. Again, a lot of talk about Newcastle being the host of, again, a 4A. Jeffersonville, second straight year. They come over. Lawrence North, of course, their second straight year. They played Jeffersonville last year. This year, the first game will be LN and Terre Haute North. Terre Haute North 21-5, Lawrence North 21-6. So, interesting game. I think Terre Haute North's probably better than people are giving them credit for. I think, some of the talk this week is that LN, again, it's just people talking or whatever. I think people expect LN to advance, but I wouldn't sleep on Coach Wolfie's team there. They he always has this team ready to play, it seems like, and they're always doing well in the tournament. They've got some pretty good size. Brady Klopfenstein is a 6'6" junior. Bryce Wren, 6'10" senior. So they got some decent size. Blake Hammond's a 6'4" forward. So decent size there. They've got some guards who can score too. They did have to come back. They were down 13 against Whiteland with about a little over 3 minutes left, and came back and won that game in double overtime last week. So they had to battle back and hang on and hang in there, and they were able to. Lawrence North had a completely different type of game. They blew out Mooresville in the regional, but did come through a tough sectional, very battle-tested team. Talking to those guys, they're certainly motivated to get through this round, because last year they lost in this same round. They lost to Jeffersonville. They had a lead in the fourth quarter, kind of let it get away. It was kind of a stunner. I think at that point, we didn't know how good Jeffersonville was yet. I think that was kind of their coming out party to a certain extent. And then there was a lot of buzz about them all summer after that, really. But at that point, you kind of thought LN was the team that was going to be there and maybe win that semi-state and play in the state finals. So a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth from that, but I'm sure they're going to be motivated. Xavier Robinson, of course, they're the Wildcats leader with Kai McGrew, Brennan Miller, Cam Webster, Jamar Thomas. Not a super, super deep team by their standards, but definitely a lot of talent. The one thing, and there's something that has kind of been the case for LN in recent years at times, is their outside shooting has not been great. So that could be something to look for. That may be a storyline going into the game, and we'll see. Sometimes, though, like the Greenfield Central game, they came out and just absolutely were drilling threes. So it's a one-game scenario. Sometimes the trends of a season don't play out like you think they might. So that is something that they have struggled with. They do everything else. They rebound well. They score inside. They can play up tempo. They can play a slower tempo. So I think everything else looks pretty good for LN. I took LN to win that game by 9. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little closer than that, but I think LN will get by Terre Haute North in that first game. The second game is a lot tougher to pick. I had Jeffersonville and Mount Vernon. Both teams 21-5. Jeffersonville ranked number 6 in 4A. Mount Vernon not ranked, but all those things are irrelevant at this point. These two teams are clearly two teams that could play in the state finals, and we're going to see how does Jeffersonville defend Luke Earl. It's been hard for the teams that have seen him so far in the tournament, and really good teams. I mean, he was phenomenal against Brownsburg last week. It didn't score as much, but got the ball where it needed to be. Just kind of played the role of a point guard and ended up with 19, 8, and 8. He had 36 the previous week and 10 rebounds and 8 assists against Greenfield Central. So on an absolute tear, and the team around him is playing really well too. Tyler Davis, 6'6" senior, is really stepped his game up, especially. So there's a lot of guys who can beat you from Mount Vernon, but it starts with Ertl. That's where Jeffersonville will have to defend really well in order to win this game. There's not many teams that have a trio like Sharon Wilkerson has there with Jeff, with Wilkerson. Oh, I'm sorry, with Singleton, 6'9", Northwestern commit. And now I think he's fully healthy from the foot thing he had in the summer or late summer, fall, and missed part of the season with that. He's been playing really well here of late. PJ Douglas and Michael Cooper, both senior guards who are going to Wright State. They are excellent players as well. I know Douglas has been battling a little bit of an injury too, but those guys can go, and they've been playing well throughout the tournament. And they're not a team that's got a lot of other guys who score a lot, but they do have guys who played a lot. Sean Boyd, a senior, Terrence Nord, a junior. Those guys can do some things too. Good role players, and up and down the lineup for them. But they're really going to count on, I think, probably Singleton, maybe more than anybody, will be kind of the guy they'll key around, and he's a good passer too. He'll open things up for those other guys as well. I took Jeffersonville by 3. I think it's going to be a fantastic game, and honestly, if it is that close, I wouldn't be surprised if Hertel managed to get Mount Vernon past Jeffersonville. But so by my picks, I've had Jeffersonville and LN. I took Jeffersonville by 2. Jeff to win by 2 in that night game and advance to the state finals in 4A South. In 3A at Southport, you'll have 2 excellent matchups. Number 3 New Pal against Brownstown Central is ranked number 4. So that'd be a fantastic game. 10 a.m. Julius Gizzi and that New Pal team, they've been building for this for a while. Finally won a regional, and they beat Guerin Catholic 63-49 last week. And they've won 18 out of their last 19. The only loss in that group is to Mount Vernon. So, nothing to sneeze at there. That's a great team as well. But yeah, this New Pal team, they've been building for this for a while. Obviously, they were a 4A team in the past. They've won sectional titles in 4A. This 3A run a little bit different. It is for Brownstown too. They were a 2A team last year, won state in 2A actually. So And then without Jack Benner, I think some people were probably not paying attention, to what they had coming back quite as much. But a lot of guys did come back. Chase Coomer, Colby Hall, Lane Pendleton, all those guys are over 15 points a game. Coomer over 17 a game at last check. And they do have good size. Those guys are 6'5", 6'6", 6'2". So good size on that team. And Dave Benner, I mean, is about as good as it gets from a coaching perspective, too. Over 500 wins now. And they've come through a tough schedule, tough sectional. They had to beat Silver Creek to get through. They won by 2. And then they were able to get through last week in the regional as well. So that Brownstown Central team really good. I took and they beat Evansville Memorial last week in the regional, but I did take New Pal by 3 to advance in that game. And then the second game would be Princeton and Addicts. In Addicts, beat number 1 Cathedral, beat Northview last week by 11 in the regional. We talked to Chris Hawkins on this last week. They're loaded. Desmond Briscoe, Chris Hurt, Caden English, Imon Cousins, Shea Brownlow, all those guys are seniors up and down the lineup. They have a lot of seniors, a lot of veteran leadership. Princeton's a team. They've been building this from the ground up, basically. Lamar Brown, also talked to him a couple weeks ago about his team, and they had 3 wins 3 years ago. So they've been building since then. Edwin Holmes is their leading scorer, but Jace Jenkins, a senior. Holmes is a junior. He's 17 points and about 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Jenkins, 14.3 points a game. And then Jalen Price, over 10 points. DeMarcus Newsom, also about 8 points a game. So they have some weapons as well. And I think they're going to bring a big crowd. Again, they have to make a pretty good trip there. But, I'm going to say Addicts by 7. And their only losses, say Princeton, they played some good. They played North Central. They played Lawrence Central. So those are their 2 losses this year. So it's been good for them to see some other competition. But then you would have New Pal and Addicts in the final if that happens that way. And what a game that would be. What a matchup that would be. I said Addicts by 1, maybe in a couple overtimes. But yeah, that would be a fantastic championship. You're going to be guaranteed, I think, a good championship there at Southport, no matter who it is, but especially I think if it's those 2 teams playing each other in the title game. And then in 2A in the South, you have Park Heritage and Forest Park at the Hatchet House. Number 3 Park Heritage, Forest Park beat South Ripley last week, so I think that grabbed people's attention. South Ripley was ranked number 2, beat them 56-53. And Park Heritage been a team again. They been around. They made it to the state finals 4 years ago, lost to Blackhawk Christian, but they're a very balanced team. Maybe out of all these teams, maybe the most balanced team of any of them as far as scoring goes. Trey Shelsky, Rich's son, the coach's son, 13.2 points a game. But then Carter Crum, Ren Harper, Isaac Pickle, and BT Luce, they're all over 10 points per game. So they can all score, a lot of weapons. Forest Park, they are a team that maybe people didn't expect to be here necessarily, but the Partenheimer had a big game last week. He's 11.4 points a game. Wolf and Berg are also over 10 points a game, and Brock Schuler, also another guy who can score for you. So they've got a few guys who can score as well. Again, Forest Park's a team, they've been in this game a lot. They played in the Semistate last year, lost to Park Heritage by 10. So they're used to being here. I said Park Heritage by 10 again to get past them here. Park Heritage was 1 game away last year and lost to Brownstown Central. Then the other 2A game there, University and Linton Stockton. University came through a tough regional, beat Triton Central last week. Max McComb, their leading scorer, along with Blake Gray, who had a big game last week. And this Linton Stockton team, they beat Park Heritage early in the year. And I think they're a pretty battle-tested team. They beat Providence last week, 38-32, in a kind of a knockdown, drag-out game. Connor Daly had 15 points in that game. He's a 6'3" junior. This should be a really good game. I think University's got the talent to hang in there. But I took Linton Stockton by 5. So that would set up that rematch. I mentioned those 2 teams played. Park Heritage and Linton played in the Wabash Valley Classic the day after Christmas. Linton won that game by 3, 53-50. I took Park Heritage this time in a reversal to win by 3. So I think Park Heritage makes it to the state finals. And then lastly, in 1A South, you have Orleans and Hauser, 22-4 against 24-3. Two teams ranked in the top 4. Hauser ranked second. You heard from Trent Moorhead earlier, or you can go back and listen to that if you'd like. In Orleans, 14-0 against teams in its class. So both these teams undefeated against teams in their class, which I think bodes well for a really good game here. Tom Bradley, the Orleans coach, they're in a regional for the first time in 22 years. Hauser is this first time for them in 19 years. So both these schools are going to have their whole communities there. Should be an awesome atmosphere. Colin Buck will be a player to watch for Hauser, 14 points a game. But again, they're very balanced as well. Have 5 guys who can all score. So that'll be an excellent game. Rylan Crocker, the leading scorer for Orleans, 16 points a game, and Alex DeWitt about 14 a game. So I said Hauser by 6. But again, I think Orleans is going to be right there with them. And then Liberty Christian, Clay City, one of the most interesting games just stylistically. Liberty Christian 18-8, Clay City 25-1. Rob Hunt joined me to talk about Liberty Christian. So yeah, I think and we touched on a lot of the players for Liberty Christian. Kendrick Martin, Tamarje English, Tywayne Fuller Jr. Those are their sophomore guys who can kind of lead them in scoring. And they're 10-0 against 1A opponents. Clay City, 10 seniors. Chris Ames has quite a group there. Ethan Edwards, Bryce Wyron, Michael Tucker, their leading scorers. Edwards is kind of their guy. They go to him inside. Wyram is more of a sort of a perimeter, but can drive as well. I've seen them a couple times. Really good team. I'm just curious how they can handle the pressure of Liberty Christian's going to put on you in the full court. But Clay City, if they can get this game at their style, I think they're going to win. I said Clay City by 6. So that would be Hauser Clay City, and I think that'd be a really good game. Seymour's going to, sell a lot of meals because there's going to be a lot of people down there waiting in between games for them to play that 8 p.m. game at Seymour. I said Clay City by 2. I think that'll be a fun game. Could definitely see that one going either way. But I said the Eels by 2. So what would that give us if I'm right on all those games, which I'm sure I won't be, but that would be, so 4A, you would have Fishers against Jeffersonville. That's a good matchup, I think. I think that's a game that people want to see, or maybe people think that we're going to see. Class 3A, that would match up South Bend St. Joseph against, in the South, Addicts. So South Bend St. Joe Addicts, again, I think that would be a pretty good matchup. I think one that would be close. I think South Bend St. Joe has the talent to hang with Addicts for sure. Class 2A, that would be Gary 21st in the north side of 2A against Park Heritage. So Gary 21st, Park Heritage would be the 2A game. And then in 1A, it would be Clinton Prairie and Clay City, which would be a great crowd. Those communities would really get behind those teams. I think 1A, you're going to have you get pretty good odds of having good crowds, I would say. No matter who makes it, looking at those schools that are still playing. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of how I see it. Those are all the semi-state games coming up. I know there's been some talk about Braylon Mullins. I get a lot of questions about, the new coaching hire of Darren DeVries going to IU and how does that change anything for Mullins and whatnot. And he's committed to UConn. I don't think there's really anything at this point to report. You just in this day and age, though, you just, the portal has changed things, so I think, who knows what could happen in the future. And I'm not saying anything is going to happen. He's going to UConn unless, we hear something different. I don't think we will. He's committed there. He has a relationship with that staff. It's almost April, so it's getting pretty late for anything to happen if there would be. But yeah, I mean, you never count anything out in the future, I would say. But unless there's something changes, then he's definitely a UConn commit. As far as Trent Sisley I think he was going to be in sort of unless something weird happened again, but I think he was committed to IU. He was going to be there, and obviously he's excited. He tweeted almost immediately after the hire that he's ready to get to work, and look forward to seeing him play in the Chipotle Nationals that come here in a couple weeks. Speaking of that, so he'll be here with his Montverde team playing at Hamilton Southeastern High School for that. So that'll be fun to see how he looks with that team. So anyway, went a little bit longer here than expected, but certainly enjoy talking to all my guests and breaking it down here, and I'm sure we'll have more coming in various ways at the Indy Star and do some stuff here as well. But appreciate you all joining me here, and we'll have a great Semistate Saturday, and we'll talk to you next time.